If you've played Skyward Sword, then you can probably remember a handful of stellar dungeons. I think that you can make the argument that it has the best dungeons in the series. Not only are they mechanically brilliant, they are aesthetically so unique. And the shining example of this is the Ancient Cistern. I'm Ouroboros. Let's talk. Some areas like to subtly hint to various inspirations or themes throughout the dungeon, but the Ancient Cistern is rooted in a Buddhist story. I was surprised to learn that this story is only around 100 years old. Published in 1918, The Spider's Thread is a Japanese short story by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. God, I hope I said that right. Akutagawa had multiple inspirations when writing this story. Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov is the main one, and The Spider's Thread is essentially just a retelling of it. But anyway, in Akutagawa's version of the story, the Buddha is walking through paradise one day when he decides to stop and look into a pond filled with lotus flowers. While admiring it, he notices that he can see through the pond, straight into hell, and while looking, he takes notice of one particular person. Kandata. Obviously, being in hell, Kandata is a sinner. However, the Buddha realized that even though he had a lifetime of bad deeds, Kandata did manage to have one good moment. While he was walking through the forest one day, Kandata decided not to crush a spider under his foot. He had noticed it in time and avoided stepping on it instead. This act of kindness inspired Buddha to save the man. He took a single spider thread and lowered it into the depths in hopes that Kandata would be able to climb out. Down in hell, the sinners writhed in the darkness of the pool of blood, but Kandata was able to notice the lifeline sent down by Buddha. He begins to climb, and as the journey from hell to salvation is no easy feat, tires out quickly. He's rejuvenated, though, when he glances down and realizes the progress he's made. His epiphany that he may just be able to escape is short-lived once he realizes that the other sinners have followed him up the thread. He screams at the others that he's the only one allowed to escape with the thread, and that is exactly when the string breaks. He and the rest of the sinners fall back into the pool of blood, condemned to a life of torment. Kandata is solely responsible for the failed rescue because he was selfish in his salvation, rather than sharing it with the others. Buddha is of course sad to see this, but continues to wander around paradise. If you've played through the Ancient Cistern, you can see so many of the parallels. For starters, the very first thing you see in the dungeon is a giant Buddha statue, so obviously not exactly being subtle, Nintendo. But just take a look at the initial area in the dungeon. It's pristine, almost regal, almost opulent. It is man's idea of what paradise would be like. A gilded utopia filled with lotus flowers. This theming is prevalent throughout the top half of the dungeon. Oh, and if you didn't know, a cistern is basically just a big hole that was used for catching and storing rainwater. Kind of like a well. And it's all well and good until you get flushed into the basement. There you find some of the creepiest rooms in any Zelda game. The water has been almost entirely replaced with goop juice? I know it's supposed to represent the pool of blood, but I don't really know how else to describe it. It's dark, and there are demonic faces carved into the walls. It's so eerie. Very similar to the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time, or Arbiter's Grounds in Twilight Princess, or, well, the entirety of Majora's Mask. It's such a stark contrast to the upper portions of the dungeons, and serves to further emphasize the difference between the idyllic, heavenly top half and the hellish wasteland of the basement. And then there's the iconic climb up the rope when the zombie bokoblins attempt to throw you back into the pit. While not entirely one-to-one with the story, it's heavily inspired by the other sinners bringing down Kandata. And remind me again, what ends up crushing the zombie bokoblins? Yeah, it's the Buddha statue. And what is the boss key for this dungeon? It's a lotus flower. And the boss is at the very pinnacle of the dungeon. You rise all the way from the depths of hell to basically come face to face with the gatekeeper of salvation. In this case, it's Kalaktos, the well-deserved famous boss of the ancient Cistern. Again, it's not a one-to-one replica of the story, but in this case, Kalaktos does share resemblance to an Asura. There's some conflicting information based on what religion and even geographical sect of each religion is, but they tend to be some kind of violent demon or deity. Sometimes they can be associated with materialistic desires, hence the all-golden color scheme, and are commonly depicted with multiple heads and or arms. And do I really need to explain the similarities with that last one? And that's kind of the bulk of the information I've got for the ancient Cistern and Buddhism. This video was fun to research. I often don't go into things like this, so let me know if this is something you've enjoyed. I tend to focus on game design rather than real-life inspirations for various gaming-related stuff. I think this could be a fun mini-series to do, similar to Monster Hunter May, which I did a few months back. But I've got a handful of games coming out really soon that I really want to play. One of the things I do love about the Ancient Cistern is its aesthetic. It's not defined by its element. Zelda games tend to get stuck in this pattern of using the element as a crutch instead of an addition. Like, I'm so tired of walking into a forest dungeon and going, oh look, there's a bunch of plants and trees, or walking into a water temple and going, oh look, it's a bunch of waterfalls and streams. Skyward Sword does that better than a lot of the series. Obviously, the Ancient Cistern is one. It uses water to further its theme, and the Sand Ship is another great example. It's decrepit and falling apart because it's been abandoned for so long, so it needs to have sand. But the defining characteristic of that dungeon is the time shift mechanic. Water isn't the defining characteristic of the Ancient Cistern. It's the dichotomy of the upper and lower portions in addition to its Buddhist roots. And God, I wish more games would do things like this. Like, come on, devs, you need to be more creative and create unique environments. Before I end things off, I do just want to say a few things. First of all, thank you if you've made it to the end of this video. Second, and this is gonna sound a little weird, but thank you to those of you who watch my less popular videos. My views fluctuate a lot. Like, some videos will be a few dozen views and some will get a lot of views. I don't really know why it's like this, but I'm just happy to be able to make videos every week here and every day on my secondary channel. It's been a ton of fun. I'm trying my best to stick to the videos that I want to make and not chase the money, and even though that's hard sometimes, I just want to reiterate that I'm thankful to everybody who does take time out of their day to watch the stuff I make. I hope that I can continue to retain a sense of self in this YouTube journey, and I hope that you'll continue to watch my videos. I say this at the end of basically every video, and I always mean it. Thanks for watching.